Today with President Obama to discuss a smooth transition. Also meeting with GOP congressional leaders. Back with me now, Ari Fleischer, Kirsten Powers, and David Gergen. Ari, the big question in Washington is, what will Trump's priorities be in office? Listen to what he said today on his D.C. tour.
What are the top three?
Well, we have a lot. We have very strong immigration. We're restoring healthcare, and we're looking at jobs, big league jobs.
Now, he's promised on day one to repeal Obamacare and replace it with something terrific. Is that the right place to start, Ari?
Well, it is, Don. I think when you become the president and you ran on certain promises, and especially for the people who support you, you need to do what you said. If you're not going to do what you said, you're going to endanger your entire presidency. I think the hardest part about repealing Obamacare can be repealed as soon as Congress passes a repeal. That's a one-sentence piece of legislation. But Republicans are going to need to replace it. And I would not advise Republicans to repeal it without having the replacement follow at the same time, or at least by the same effective date. But the other things he needs to do, and I'm for comprehensive immigration reform, my position lost. He needs to take action on immigration if he's going to be a successful president, given the promises he made, and focus on the economy. Those are the three things he promised to do, and he'll need to do them. The Iran deal is the other. He said he'd oppose the Iran deal, and he'll need to take action on that as well.
David, talking about Obamacare again, to Ari's point, the repeal part, that's going to be the relatively easy part. It's the replace part that's going to be hard. And what about the 20 million people who would lose insurance? Is that what he wants to do as his first official act?
Well, in first place, I think Ari is right. He doesn't really want to repeal this until he's got a replacement that's going to be in place. You can't sort of leave everything fall apart here for several months. You can't leave a gap there. And I think the challenge is going to be that Donald Trump has laid out some principles about basically where he wants to go, but drawing up a bill is a complicated process, and there are a lot of incredibly important details. What do you do with those 20 million people? What about the kids who are living at home with their parents and are on their parents' plan? You know, what do you do about subsidies? Where do you get the money and all these things? There's some very, very thorny problems. I would think, Ari, what he would have to do is appoint some sort of action task force with a 90-day deadline to come up with a plan. Maybe he can get it started during the transition with the new HHS chief and some others. But he's got some people on the Hill who have obviously thought about this a lot. But I would think with some sort of executive congressional task force with some folks from the medical community who add in, come up with a plan. And I do think it's going to be a high priority. I happen to think his number one priority should be jobs. And I think I think it's there that he can find the most bipartisanship in working across the aisle because investment in infrastructure is a pretty widely agreed upon plan. Now there's money, question how you do taxes. There are a lot of hard questions, but I think that's really where he wants to move as quickly as he can, as quickly as the process will allow him to move.
Yeah, jobs, jobs, jobs. I think you're right on that. Kirsten, I have to tell you, what's interesting is that yesterday, the day after the election, Americans signed up for Obamacare in droves. Over 100,000 people did, just in one day, the highest total since open enrollment began. Despite the plan's flaws, and there are flaws in the plan, there are many people who need it, and parts of it are very popular. Could this get messy?
It could, but you know, we focus a lot on the people who would lose their coverage, but the thing that I think the Democrats have not taken seriously enough are the granted small percentage, but it's about 20% of the people who are seeing their premiums going up, and in some states they're going up in a way that's really crushing to people. This is not a minor issue. It's not okay to have 20% of the people on Obamacare paying basically for the other 80% who are using subsidies. So I think there are some flaws that need to be addressed. And look, the Republicans have tried to repeal Obamacare more times than I can count. I actually don't even know what the number is anymore. So they have said they have plans to replace it, and they often talk about health savings accounts or sort of free market solutions such as being able to sell health care across state lines. But yes, they're going to have to come up with something to replace it, because throwing people off of health insurance, we know what the stories are going to be like. We're going to be covering them, the person who couldn't get the surgery that they needed, the life-saving surgery they needed because Donald Trump took away their health insurance.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Have a good evening. See you next time. Coming up.